Welcome back to SoundersFC.com. Tony Ventrella with Matt Gash. The season has come to an end. This is our 2011 season review. So many ups and downs this year. Now, if you were talking to coaches the other day, and you asked them this question, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Okay.
If you could...
I'll try not to steal one of their answers.
Put this season, I'm sure it'll be word for word. If you could put this season into one phrase, how would you describe it?
I would say memorable. Can I use two?
Yeah, go
because
ahead.
Memorable and resilient, I think. There was a lot of great memories from this season. A lot of things that I think the players will take with them for years to come. Fans definitely, and I know I will remember for a long time. But also resilience. I mean, we're going to get into this momentarily, but with so many injuries and so many obstacles facing this team, they were still able to win more games than any team in MLS history, and really, winning the Open Cup, reaching Champions League quarterfinals, second place in the league. It had a tremendous amount of success this season. But like I said, a really tough way to end it, but definitely memorable and a lot of resiliency out of this team.
And the bouncing back to resiliency comes from so many obvious things that happened, and we'll get into this. Steve Zakuani injury, the injury to Freddie Montero's wrist, which he came back from. Right. OBrien White goes out with a blood clot. The emotions of Casey Keller's last season, although that didn't really catch up until the last couple of months. But let's go back to the beginning. A slow start, really. I guess the best way to describe it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone anticipated that the first two games they wouldn't score a goal, and then go into the third game and still only get the one. One goal for the three games, 2 points through the first four. Really not the start at all they hoped to have, expected to have, and really in a lot of ways should have had. They had opportunities in all four of those games to come out victorious, and just weren't able to do it. But again, getting back to the resiliency, they never panicked. They never felt they were out of it. They knew that they had the guys in place that could get the job done, and sure enough, by game 5 they'd got it all straightened out and kind of let it roll from there. One thing of note from this season, when they lost a game after losing to LA and New York to start the season, when they lost a game, they never had a second loss after that. They were always able to come back and either draw or win after that. And even at that, after the second loss, the one to New York, they won every time after a loss following that start. So they avoided those streaks, and that's key. And when you're able to do that, that's how you have success in this league and really in any league.
One of the guys in place you're talking about, of course, was Steve Zakuani, a star from the time he was a rookie. Into Game 7, you go to Colorado.
That changes the whole game.
Win,
your keys, we can throw those out.
Mixed emotions coming out
so
of that,
early.
That awful injury.
Right, absolutely, and that was
players
again,
got up and had to walk away. Because
obviously
it was,
a memorable
as soon as
moment,
he came down,
it showed
you
that
could see that
they were able to bounce back from that play, that traumatic
situation.
moment.
Yeah, we don't want to make a diagnosis
situation. Freddie Montero scores the goal in that game.
And nobody's got it.
And
here's Rosales
in
the middle.
Was a moment that I think
tucking it over, Montero, and he's scored, breaking a long scoring drought since last August. Freddie Montero.
Burying my head in my hands and saying, how did this happen? Is there a way to rewind this and do this one over? It was, I think traumatic to everyone there, everyone involved, and I think we're all fortunate that Steve's progressing so much, and who's going to argue with adding a 10-goal scorer to this roster next season? I mean, it's going to be a great group with Steve coming back in.
And then as you flash ahead, when he made his first appearance back in Seattle, it was placard night,
right.
whatever else you would call it, and an amazing scene that night. He knew he had support, but it was confirmed that night.
Absolutely, and you can never underestimate the power of the Sounders FC fans, and you see the 36,000 holding those 11 cards. You see 64,000 there for Casey's farewell game. You see, the tifo display before the Portland and Vancouver games, before the Open Cup final, before the playoff game. I mean, anytime you think this group has outdone itself, they're ready to do it again the next time around. And I can't wait to see what happens next year. They're just incredible, and I love every minute of those guys.
You alluded to the Northwest rivalry, and of course that is back in place now with Vancouver and Portland coming into the league. Huge emotional matches in both those cities and here when they came here. just adding another piece to the puzzle this year.
Absolutely, and again, one of those memorable games. I mean, Portland was maybe one of my favorite trips this year, and there was so much involved in that trip and in that game.
As well,
it was a good drive. It was a great drive, and you know, it was a chance for you know, as an aside, just a lot of the staff to go down there and kind of be a part of a Sounders road trip, and it was fun. And then the game. I mean, the game was incredible. And Freddie Montero comes and scores the game-winning goal, and just, you know, in dramatic fashion, and just you know, Freddie Montero kind of declared himself the king of Cascadia with that game, and then following it up with 2 goals in Vancouver. And you know, he thrives on moments like that, and you know, I think those were the games where you said, okay, this is Freddie Montero. This is the guy who signed the designated player contract and we came to love so much in 2009.
Now there was a part of the season though where he was playing with the cast. Right. Obviously, when you have a weight on one arm, right, and you're trying to keep up that speed and that ability, he was challenged by that.
Right, he was, and he didn't feel it necessarily at the time. He wasn't about to use that as an excuse. You know, we talked to him about it kind of throughout the time that he had it, and he's like, yeah, it bothers me, but I'm still playing soccer. It doesn't change what I'm doing on the field. Now looking back on it, he says, yes, that was a hindrance. It made playing my game harder because I was worried about falling on it. I was worried about how I was positioning my arms and using, and I mean, no hands in soccer, but you're definitely using your arms to hold guys off and make a play. And he was worried about that. He was worried that he'd re-injure himself or that you know, that he'd be more clued into by referees who were looking for him using that to an advantage, and he didn't want to, you know, put his team at a disadvantage, and you know, in the end, you know, we saw the real Freddie at the end of the year, and again, looking forward to see what he can do a full year at full strength.
And in fact, another player that comes to mind when you mention that phrase is Mauro Rosales, who came here. People that know the game knew what to expect from him. It didn't come early on, but it finally did.
Right. Once, you know, I kind of point to the Chicago game, the game at home against Chicago. He whips a great ball to OBrien White, and you see, you know, you see what we're missing with OBrien White there as well, because he snaps that header in and just Mauro puts it in this unbelievable space where no one can get it but OBrien White. And OBrien White just extends himself beyond belief and puts so much power behind that shot. But that was kind of Mauro Rosales' introduction to the Sounders fans who maybe didn't know much about him before that. You know, I remember the day he came to training down in Florida. It was his birthday, and kind of as he's being introduced, the team is singing happy birthday to him. And that just shows in a lot of ways that you know, the team accepted him from day one, and he noted that after the season as well, that from day one he felt like he'd been a part of this team for years, and you can tell he's been a tremendous leader for this team. He adds a different dynamic, a different role, a different leadership quality that wasn't there before, and really is going to be so vital now that they don't have their captain Keller in the back line next year.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute, because the impact of that really, as Keller said himself a couple of weeks ago, the impact of that probably won't hit anybody until January, February, when the new team comes out and he's not there. Let's talk about CONCACAF, because that's another step in the right direction, starting with a win in Monterey.
Right, yeah, and they had a couple games at home and were able to get some good results out of those, and then going to Monterey and getting a win there, I think that was the huge turning point where they said, okay, you know what, this is what we wanted, this is what we hoped for, and they didn't have very much success in this tournament last year, and to have that success, to get that win in Monterey was such a huge moment for this team. Just a point of relief, a point of maybe justification to a lot of those guys, because it wasn't a lot of the starters in that game. You know, Alvaro Fernandez scores the first goal, and they hold on and win that game 1-0. And it was so similar to the game there last year, where Sounders go up 2-0 and feel like they've got it, and they just need to hold on for that last few minutes, and they weren't able to do it. This year they got that goal early and were able to hold on for the whole second half, and it was really one of the more incredible games to watch from that element of just grasping and holding on to that victory as tight as you can, and again showing their resilience.
There was a lot that happened throughout the whole season, but toward the end there were three major things that come to mind, and one of them, of course, is the third consecutive Open Cup championship, and just a magical night at CenturyLink.
It really was. Again, one of those nights that nobody's ever going to forget. There were, again, 34,000, 35,000 fans there. Just an incredible night, and again, just getting that victory, hoisting that Open Cup for the third time. We just got the medals the other day. It's just something that everyone in this organization, from Adrian Hanauer all the way down to the last guy on the bench and the interns in the ticketing department, they're never going to forget that night. It's just an incredible night.
We'll have to check with them and make sure they don't. And of course, the Casey Keller's last night, 64,104 show up at CenturyLink, and the victory comes and everything happens the way that it was planned.
Right.
You would think.
Yeah. I mean, if you could have scripted that story, and maybe Joe Roth is doing that right now as we speak, but you couldn't have done it any better. Sounders trail 1-0, and things are looking kind of dour, but this team's come back so many times before, and they do just that. And Casey comes up with a big moment, getting those 4 knockdowns there towards the end of the game, and he's doing it against Kari Stevenson is a guy who scored on virtually that same shot down in San Jose earlier in the year. Chris Wondolowski, the most goals scored in the league over the last 2 years, gets to the rebound, and Casey's able to knock it away from him. Just an incredible sequence of events, and then to score the 2 and get the victory. It could not have ended any better for Casey Keller on his last home game, and to have 64,000 there, and to have the reaction, the post-game speeches, Arlo White leading the whole group, just another in a series of memorable nights.
Now, there was a flat moment late in the season that I'm sure will be in part of history that maybe most of us won't remember in a couple of years from now, but the night in Salt Lake when you have that bad match, and that was it.
Right. It really was. And I'll say this, though. Again, noting the resilience of this team, they came back and they fought hard. And if not for 2 injuries in the first 20 minutes of that game, who knows? And that's kind of another theme to this season. Is, who knows where this team would have been if Steve Zakuani never got hurt. And that's one of those things that you're just going to have to wonder, you can either wonder about it or just, put it in the back of your mind. But, if Brad Evans and Alvaro Fernandez are able to play that whole game, who knows how it could have been different.
And speaking of resilience, too, you're coming back and the momentum is building. In that 61st minute, here comes the second goal.
Right.
And everyone in that stadium, with the exception of Real Salt Lake, expected a third goal.
Right.
And maybe a fourth goal.
Right.
Didn't happen. A bit of disappointment, but all in all, a great season. So in our last couple of minutes, let's do this. Where do we go from here? I mean, I talked to Chris Henderson the day we got our medals a day or so ago. They're already on a plane flying around the world looking for new players. Does it start with goalkeeper? I suppose it has to.
Yeah, it really has to. And that's not to say that they didn't see what they wanted to see out of Terry Boss, out of Brian Meredith and Josh Ford. You just probably would rather have a guy in there who is an experienced goalkeeper, who can get you, who can get results. And those guys, for as much as we've seen out of them, for as talented as those guys are, we just haven't seen that out of them yet. And that's where this is going to be a difficult task, is they're going to have to bring in someone who can lead this team in some ways, and with the back 4 being as solid as they were most of the year, it's going to be a little bit of an easier task, because that group is so solid and has been together here for the last 2-3 years. That'll make it a little bit easier on that goalkeeper, whoever it is, but you definitely got to have someone in there who's a veteran who can play at that high level, just because that's what the players have come to expect, the fans, everyone has come to expect out of this team.
Speaking of the fans, too, passionate, thousands and thousands of passionate Sounder FC fans around here and around the rest of the world as well. But every year, as a passionate fan, there is an emotion that turns against you when guys that were there last year are gone, and that's just inevitable. We're not going to name names, but it's not going to be, the roster will stay intact, but there are going to be some people that are gone. That's just part of the process.
Absolutely, and that starts with the expansion draft, and we've lost key pieces to this team in the last 2 years to the expansion draft. Sebastian Letou, who's having a great career now in Philadelphia. Nathan Sturgis, who was such a key piece of this team in the middle of midfield in 2010, and then Sana Niasi, who came on so strong at the end of the 2010 season. They're gonna lose a good player to the expansion draft. There's no way around it, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna be difficult, but this team again has shown that they're able to fight through that. And when one player goes, they've got a player ready to step in and take his place. Lamar Nagel has been incredible this year. Definitely a revelation for this team. And his goal in Salt Lake again makes another memorable night, winning that game down in Salt Lake early in the season.
See, that's another thing. You talk about writing a script. Here's a local guy from Federal Way who then becomes the player that he was expected to be, and beyond that,
right,
for his local team, which is a great story that you cannot write.
Absolutely.
Let's do this at the end of this review, which is right now. Give me a quick preview, thoughts for next year. Do we get over the hump?
Every year I feel like this is the year, and this year there were so many times, throughout the year that I felt like this is the team that's going to do it. And if not for that night in Salt Lake, maybe they were, but you've got to put it together, and they haven't been able to do that yet. The Open Cups are great, and I'd love to see them win a fourth one, but definitely the MLS Cup is on the radar, and that's the end goal. That's the one that everyone's going to remember nationally. When you look at when they say who's the MLS champion, who's the best team in the U.S., it's the MLS Cup champion, and you need to hoist that trophy at the end of the year, because really that's the only way to go into the off season and not have a little bit of an empty feeling. And if that's this team next year, I really hope so. I think they definitely have a lot of the pieces in place now. It'll be interesting to see this offseason how they're able to augment that to kind of make this team a little stronger next year.
And Matt, will follow that for you during the offseason. A lot of things going on, expansion draft, and the regular draft, right, and all types of things happening, player awards, coaches awards, and we'll follow that for you on SoundersFC.com. That's our season in review. Matt Gash, I'm Tony Ventrella. We'll see you soon on SoundersFC.com.
The Sounders are proud to partner with Special Olympics as we spread the word to end the word. I'm James Riley. When I hear people use the R word, retard, I think of my friend Stuart, a Special Olympics athlete who has an intellectual disability. Please join my teammates and me and take the pledge to stop using the R word. It hurts Stuart and it hurts the team. Sign the pledge today at the Special Olympics booth in Soccer Celebration on the main concourse. Spread the word to end the word. Thank you.